Namo tassa bhagavatu arahatu samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavatu arahatu samma sambuddhassa. Veneration to the Buddha. Iti piso bhagava arahang samma sambuddhu Vinja charana sampanno sugaturu kavidu Anuttaro purisa dhamma sarati Sattha deva manussanang buddho bhagavati. Veneration to Dhamma. Swakhato bhagavata dhammo Sandittiko akhaliko Ehi passiko opanaiko Pachattang veditabbu Vinyuhiti. Veneration to the Sangha. Supatipanno Bhagavatu Savaka Sanghu Ujupatipanno Bhagavatu Savaka Sanghu Nyaya Patipanno Bhagavatu Savaka Sanghu Samichi Patipanno Bhagavatu Savaka Sanghu Yadidang Chattari Purisa Yugani Atte Purisa Pungala Isa Bhagavatu Savaka Sanghu Ahuneyu Pahuneyu Dakkineyu Anjali Karaniyu Anutterang Punyaketang Dukassati. Offering candles. Ganasarapadittena Deepena Tamadangsina Tiloka Deepang Sambundhang Pujayami Tamunudang. Offering incense. Gandha Sangbhara Yuktena Dhupinahang Sugandhina Pujaye Pujaniyantang Puja Bhajana Muttamang. Offering flowers. Vanna Gandha Gunupitang Etang Kusuma Santating Pujayami Munindassa Siripada Saruruhe Pujemi Buddhang Kusumena Nena Punyena Mitena Chahotu Mokhang Puphang Milayati Yatha Idammi Kayu Tathayati Vinasa Bhavang. Offering medicinal drinks including water. Adivase tunu bhante paniyang parikappitang anukhang pang upadaya patiganhatu muttamang adivase tunu bhante gilana pachayang imang anukampang upadaya patiganhatu muttamang adivase tunu bhante besanjang parikappitang Anukampang upadaya patiganhatu muttamang. Veneration of all the pagodas of Buddha's relics and the Bodhi tree. Vandami chetiyang sambang sambedhani supatittitang saririka dhatu mahabuding buddhirupang sakalang sada yassa mule nisinnove sambari vijayang akha Patto Sammanyutang Santa Vanditang Bodhipadipam. Apologizing from the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha for any mistakes that we may have done unintentionally or intentionally. Kayena Vacha Chittena Pamadena Maya Katang Achayang Kamami Bhante Bhuripanya Tathagata Kayena Vacha Chittena Pamadena Maya Katang Achayang Kamami Dhamma Sandittika Akalika Kayena Vacha Chittena Pamadena Maya Katang Achayang Kamami Sangha Supatipanne Anuntara. Aspiration Imina Punya Kammena Mami Bala Samagamu Satan Samagamu Hutu Yava Nibbana Patantiya Sadhu Sadhu Sadhu. Okay, now we move on to the meditation. Please keep to your postures. Practicing metta meditation. Sit comfortably with your feet flat on the floor and your spine straight. Relax your whole body. Keep your eyes closed throughout the whole visualization and bring your awareness inward. Just relax and gently follow instructions. Take a deep breath in and breathe out. May I be well, happy, and peaceful. May I be healthy. May my life be filled with happiness and well being. May I rejoice in the well being of others. May I attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Just as I wish to, may my loved ones, all my neutral persons, all my difficult persons, and all beings be well, happy, and peaceful. May they be healthy. May their lives be filled with happiness and well being. May they rejoice in the well being of others. May they attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let's transfer all the good karmas to the departed relatives. Idam me nyati nang hotu sukhita huntu nyatayo. Idam me nyati nang hotu sukhita huntu nyatayo. Idam me nyati nang hotu sukhita huntu nyatayo. Let's share all the good karmas with the Devas and Nagas, deities, and all the powerful beings. May they be happy and peaceful. May they also protect all of us, and may they attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Ittavata cha ammehi sambhatang punya sampadang sabbe deva anumodantu sabbe bhuta anumodantu sabbe satta anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya akasattha cha bhummattha devanaga mahittika Punyantang anamoditva Chirang rakkang tuloka sasanang Chirang rakkang tudesanang Chirang rakkang tumang paranti. Okay, now it's time to worship the monastics. Ovini, you can.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Silavantam gunavantam punyakirtam anuttaran tullavena maya laddam buddha puttam namamaham. Silavantam gunavantam punyakirtam anuttaran tullavena maya laddam buddha puttam anuttaran tullavena maya laddam buddha puttam namamaham.
Next is venerating our parents. So please approach your parents. Mother. Dasamase ure katva posesi buddhi karanang ayudidhang vassa satang matu padang namamahang. Dasamasayak duk vindama hedu ammi lekiri karapova ma dedikala ammi nivase budun yai budu himi desu ammi oba payuga vandimi ma adara ammi. Father, buddhikaru alingitva chumbitva piya puttakang rajamajjang supatintang පිපුපාදං නමාමහං නැති බැරි කමක් මට නොදැනෙන නියායෙනි දුක් කරදර මැදින් මා හැදු දයාවෙනි හොඳ දරුවෙකු වෙන්න මට දුන් ඔවාමිනි ඔබ පායුග වඳිමි මා ආදර පියාණෙනි. Okay, up next is the blessing to all of you. Abhivadana silissa nichang vaddha pachayino chattaro dhamma vaddhanti ayuvanno sukhang balang ayurarogya sampatti sagga sampatti mevacha ato nibbana sampatti iminati samijjatu. Now let's move on to the singing of the Dhamma school song. Please rise and then. Thank you.
Okay. Here we are. Let's make a breakout room for the junior class. And Selah and Dalapandala will go there. Okay, here we go. Let's see if this works. Meanwhile, for everyone else, we are starting today with page, where'd it go? We are discussing today Tāvatiṃsa heaven, which is, I think, one of the more famous or renowned heavens. It figures a lot in the mythology. If you will open your textbooks to page 443. 443. Here's the link to the textbook in case anyone doesn't have it. Where's the chat? There we go. There's a link to the textbook, and we want to go to page 443. Okay. Why do we have this view? We want the gallery view. There we go. So, yes, today we're going to be talking about Tāvatiṃsa heaven, which is one of the, I guess, more important heavens in the mythology, because a lot of the powerful deities and figures that appear in mythology and Jataka stories and kinds of things, they often come from or interact with this heavenly realm. So it figures a lot in stories and so on. Okay, great. Looks like the breakout room is working. Good. Let's start with Dilaka on page 443. Would you read the first paragraph?
Yeah. I changed my mic, so.
Oh, okay. I can hear you. I'll let you know if we have any difficulty with sound.
For sure. Okay, page 443. Okay. Tāvatiṃsa is the second of the sensual sagas and the highest realm still in contact with the earth. It is located at the peak of Mount Sinuru, 84,000 yojana above sea level. The name Tāvatiṃsa is a variant form of the numeral 33 and refers to the 33 chief Devas of this realm, which form a kind of governing council of the world. The idea of being 33 chief gods was a common Indo-Aryan heritage, and is also found in Vedic and Zoroastrian sources. Loosely speaking, this is the realm that is Indian equivalent to Olympus or Valhalla. Great.
Okay. Yeah. So the sensual sagas. Can anybody tell me what's the difference between a sensual and a non-sensual saga? Anybody know? So it's a bit of an advanced pop quiz because we haven't talked about non-sensual sagas yet. What's the difference?
I think that in sensual sagas, the beings have bodies, and in non-sensual ones, they don't.
Sort of, yeah. So actually, there is a category in between, but yes, the higher non-sensual sagas, they don't have bodies; they're just formless minds. But there is a band in between, which we'll talk about. But essentially, they are still bound in the sense desire realm. Their experience is one of sense desire, and the pleasure experience is sensory pleasure. So there is a realm in between, and as the senses kind of pair off, like you shed senses as you go up the ladder. So I think at this realm they still have several of the core senses that we have. Most of them. and their primary form of pleasure and gratification is sensory gratification, but it's more refined and subtle than ours. It's like the difference between having a tasty salad and fruit versus having like a greasy cheeseburger. They can both be tasty, but one is a more refined and subtle taste. So the devas of the higher realms enjoy more subtle things until you go beyond sense pleasure altogether. This is an interesting thing, of course, because these sorts of this council of gods appears in Vedic. So this is Hindu and Zoroastrian, which is like a Persian. It's an ancient Persian religion. It is still existent. There are a few 100,000 people who still practice this Zoroastrian religion, and it's closely related to Hinduism. It's like a cousin of Hinduism. So they have a lot of similar deities and things in their cosmology. But also this kind of council of gods is very similar to like Greek mythology, which you've probably seen lots of on TV or like read about in school. So this is kind of that equivalent realm. So a lot of the fun stories happen up here, you know, with the king of the gods doing this and jealousies and battles with the asuras and things like that. Naomi, why don't you read the next paragraph?
Nowhere can we find a definitive list of the 33, although we are told that the first 4 seats in the council chamber were occupied by Sakka, Pajapati, Varuna, and Isana. Other devas mentioned by name who are likely to be included in that number are Soma, Yasa, Venhu, Visakama, and perhaps Suja, the chief queen of Sakka, and Matali, the charioteer of the gods. If females and Gandharvas are allowed to be included.
Okay, great. So yeah, there's just a list of some of the names of deities who are probably in this category. Sakka is definitely in there. And Pajapati, Varuna, and Isana, they're all certainly there. Sakka is the equivalent of Indra in Hinduism. In Greek mythology, he would be Zeus, or he might be probably Odin. The equivalent would be Odin in Norse mythology. The rest are all just guesses of the author. We're not sure who else belongs there. Females and Gandhabas. So Gandhaba is a hard term to translate, so the author's left it untranslated. Does anybody know what a Gandhaba is? Nope. Okay. Yeah, they're sort of an odd category of critter. They're like, the term is also used very loosely. So sometimes it applies to some things and other things that are barely related at all. Some people translate it as goblin, but that's not really very good, a very good translation. Some of the Gandhabas are like strange forest creatures that are spooky, and some of them are like deities who live in Tāvatiṃsa heaven. So it's not really clear that it is a distinct category of creature. But yeah, they are sort of some sort of celestial being. It's like a broad term to describe all kinds of supernatural creatures. Okay. And where are we? Oh, Vindu, would you? Oh boy, that's a long story. Why don't you read the intro and the first 2 paragraphs of the story? Unless you guys have heard this before. Read the first 2 paragraphs and then tell me if you've heard it before.
Starting from at one time.
However, start from however.
Okay, sure. However, it seems unlikely that any Devi are considered to among the number of 33, given the Jatika story which relates to their origin. At one time, the Bodhisattva came to birth as a boy in a great family in a village of Makala, in the kingdom of Magadha. He was given the name of Magga. There were 33 families in that village, and when Magga had grown to manhood, all the principal men had become his fast friends, and under his influence strictly kept the 5 precepts and performed meritorious deeds. They would go forth each day, every man carrying a tool, and repair the roads, dig wells, and build rest houses for travelers. After a while, the village headmen grew uneasy as the moral influence influence of the 33 companions undermined his sense from wrongdoers.
Okay.
Trampled to death by the royal elephants.
Yeah.
But because of the force of merit, the elephants refused to harm them. The king was asked them what the magic spell they had, and Magga told the magic was the 5 precepts. The king was pleased with them and released them and gave them great wealth.
Okay, awesome. That was above and beyond. You did the 3 paragraphs rather than one. Rather than 2, sorry. No, that's good. That's okay. Have you guys heard this story before?
No.
Okay, good. Then we'll finish it. So the king released them, gave them great wealth. Ovini, will you read the next 2 paragraphs?
The companions could now undertake even more magnificent acts of merit and decided to build a large hall.
Oh, we okay? Sounds like Ovini and Ovindu have frozen. Okay, well, that's an interesting problem. Oh, wait, there you go. They're back. Oh, you froze for a bit there, Ovini. Okay. Why don't I read the rest of the story? Hang on.
The first 3 wanted very much to share.
Hang on. Yeah. Okay, good. Everyone's okay. You're not frozen anymore. I just want to make sure that I'll finish this story here, and we'll see if your network stops cutting in and out in a minute.
Okay.
So they were building rest houses and so on. Where were we? Oh yes, built a large hall at the crossroads. As the companions had at this time abandoned all desire for women, they refused to let any woman share in their meritorious works. However, there were 4 women in Magga's house: Sudhamma, Chitta, Nanda, and Suja. And of these, the first 3 wanted very much to share in the merit of the good works. To accomplish this, Dhamma resorted to a ruse. She paid a carpenter to build a pinnacle, and she put it away in the house. When the great hall was nearly complete, Magga was unable to obtain a pinnacle to complete the project, and the carpenter told him that there was no suitable wood to be had. So Dhamma brought her pinnacle forth and offered it on the condition that the women be allowed to share in the merit. Magga was reluctant at first, but at last relented. So the ladies of Dhamma contributed to the pinnacle. Chitta had a pleasure grove planted, and Nanda saw to the digging of a water tank. Suja did nothing at all. When in due time all of these passed away, Magga was reborn as Sakka, and together with his boon companions became the Devas of the 33. The ladies of Dhamma, Chitta, and Nanda were reborn as handmaidens of Sakka. But Suja, who had given nothing at all, came to birth as a crane in a forest lake. So because of the math here, so that there's the Bodhisattva and his 32 companions. That's 33. So the story tells us that they became the Devas of the 33, and they were all men explicitly in the story. And the females in the story became handmaidens, so they didn't count as part of the 33. That said, gender switching is technically allowed. There's no reason why the male companions couldn't become female. They couldn't become Devis, but that's probably not the case. In Jataka stories and the commentarial literature and things like that, it seems that gender persists fairly consistently. Like, it seems to stick a lot. It's a very slow to change property, at least according to the mythology. So if you're male or female, you're likely to retain that gender when you are reborn. Though it is not, obviously it's not permanent. It's a very sticky, I guess you could call it, like a sticky aspect of a being. So given what it says in that Jataka story, it's likely that the 33 don't include female deities. All that said, though, I think as last time, Ovini, I think you asked a question, and Bhante Chandima emphasized this, that we shouldn't necessarily put too much stock in the Jataka stories themselves because they're of somewhat obscure origin. So, don't believe everything you hear, but it's an interesting story. Okay, Ovini, why don't you try the last paragraph now? That let's see if your work is a little better.
Is it the Devas of Tāvatiṃsa?
Yeah.
Okay. The Devas of Tāvatiṃsa realm have a lifespan of 1,000 celestial years. And since one day in their realm is equal to 100 human years in length, and the celestial year is reckoned at 360 such days, this makes their lifespan in human terms 36 million years. The natural size of their bodies is given 3 Gavatas, probably about 8 kilometers in height.
So that's pretty big. They're pretty towering. Yeah, and they live for 36 million years. Usually. So that's pretty impressive. Not too bad. I imagine the world would be quite different if you went there and came back. There probably wouldn't be too much the same. But this also is an interesting, because it's an interesting problem, because of course, and I think some people have pointed this out. If you go to heaven and you come back and you live like tens of millions of years, and you come back, likely human civilization is not around anymore, or it's changed so much. Like the entire lifespan of a species is usually not that long, right? So it gives you an interesting problem as a being trying to achieve nirvana. Sometimes people are afraid of going to heaven. I've heard of this. I wouldn't worry about it too much. Some people will take very extreme lengths to avoid it. One practice that people will do to avoid getting stuck, if you go to heaven, you come back and there's no Buddhism anymore, there's no Dhamma, and if humans aren't even like humans anymore, then it's a bit problematic. How do you reobtain the merit to go and repeat the cycle and find Buddhism and stuff again? So some people are worried about this, and some people will, for example, practice very hard to attain the first. This is particularly common in Burma, to achieve the first stage of awakening, because it guarantees it become fully enlightened within 7 lifetimes. And a lot of Burmese people focus on that objective. They think, hey, if I don't have to necessarily go the whole distance, but at least I'll get that first glimpse, and then I'm safe. So that's one way to go about it. There are other groups of people kind of like practicing esoteric techniques and things who seek to extend their lifespan, their physical lifespan, so long that they will physically be around for the next Buddha. This is also common in Myanmar. There are groups that call themselves like Waitsa groups, and they do this. They try to extend their lifespans long enough so that they'll physically be alive to catch Buddhism the next time around, which is also an interesting, I guess, approach to it. Is a very direct way of going about it. I don't know if I've ever heard of anybody succeeding, but I suppose you could always try. I guess there's no harm. Okay, the next one. Okay, Seth, on the next page, why don't you read the first 2 paragraphs there, the physical description of Tāvatiṃsa. Let's see what it's like there.
Okay, so starting at the Devas?
Yeah.
Okay. The Devas of Tāvatiṃsa dwell in a beautiful city made of gold, jewels, and other precious materials. The city was said to have arisen by the power of the Kamma made by Magga and his companions building the Great Hall. This city is 10,000 yojana from the eastern gate to the western gate, and the same from north to south. It is 2,000 gates in all, and is adorned with many parks and ponds. In the center is the mighty Palace of Victory, 700 yojana high, made of the 7 precious things. It is adorned with the standard of 300 additional yojana.
Okay, great. Yeah, and then we have a quote from the scriptures. Actually, I believe this is Dhammapada. Yeah, describing the palaces and so on, pearls and gold and lapis lazuli and all these things. There's an interesting kind of issue with this, I think. I think it's kind of strange. If the city was created by the power of the Kamma created by Magga, the Bodhisattva, when he was born as Magga, then obviously he's not Sakka anymore, right? He's not the king of the gods anymore, because he eventually became the Buddha, and he's gone, right? So it's a whole different Sakka, and it's a whole different group of deities filling these seats. So it's not clear that is it that same city created by the same Kamma from the same being from Magga, or is it a different being who created it again this time around? Because obviously we're on a different Sakka and a different group of the 33. They can't be the same. It would be inconsistent anyway. So I think that's an interesting question. It's sort of unanswered, I think, and probably because nobody thought about these when they were like creating these myths and this lore. Nobody thought about these questions. So there's internal inconsistency, probably because they weren't thinking too hard about it. Okay, let's go to Dilaka again. Why don't you read the next paragraph from other texts?
Sorry, I couldn't find the tab. Which page was that again, Mike?
446, the last paragraph.
Okay. Other texts mention decorated gateways in the encircling wall, which is made of the 7 precious things and 60 yojana thick, and great high street, 60 yojana wide, and paved with gold. The chief gateway is called. Yeah, I have no idea how to say that.
Yeah, it's a long door, isn't it? Chitta Kutta Dvara Hotaka.
Okay. And it is guarded by the statues of Inda, who stand there like tigers.
Great, awesome. Yeah, so it's pretty massive in scale. Of course, like Yojana is like 12 miles or whatever. So we have 60. So we have their main thoroughfare is 60 Yojana wide, so 60 by 12. So that's an enormous street. I guess they're very, very large beings as well. So, but it would be probably difficult to get around if you were a normal person. Okay, I think we do have stories though of human beings visiting Tāvatiṃsa in the literature, but they're usually like arhats or very powerful, like spiritual beings, and so they are usually flying and using some sort of psychic power to get around. Naomi, why don't you read the next paragraph?
Among the features of Tāvatiṃsa are the many pleasure parks and gardens. The chief of these is the Nanda Navana, the grove of delight. It is adorned with various lovely trees and ponds, and features a Nandana lake. The Nanda Navana is always thronged with Devatas and their retinues of acharas who come to enjoy themselves. We hear of festival days when the Devas congregate here to make merry. The typical story, one among many in the Vimana Vattu, is of a woman who made an offering of flowers to the Buddha and afterwards was reborn as a female Deva who would spend her time singing, dancing, gathering garlands of parijataka blossoms, and generally playing in the Navana, surrounded by a retinue of 1,000 acharas. The verses describing her blissful experience speak of fancy.
Okay, yeah, that's good. The verses here are straight out of the Jataka, the Jatakas, and what's interesting about these is, of course, the story, the narrative part of the Jatakas is much younger, and it was built later, and they're usually these verse parts. All the Jataka stories have at least one passage of verse, and that's plugged into some later narrative structure that evolved. So the verses are much older than the narrative, and so they probably represent an earlier core of what the Jatakas used to be. So they are kind of more important, I think, in studying the history of Buddhism than the actual narration that grows up around them. Yeah, so it describes her existence dancing and playing in the parks. While you're dancing with all your limbs in every way, Deva-like sounds stream forth, delightful to hear, and so on. So these clearly describe some kind of heavenly existence. So I think some people have argued that early Buddhism didn't have an idea of like heaven and like literal rebirth. I think some scholars have argued this, especially in the West. I don't think that's true. I think that early Buddhists definitely believed these things were literal, that other realms existed and there was heaven and hell, and these things were real. And we can see that in, for example, older verses like this in the Jatakas, that they believed in some kind of heavenly existence for those who were noble and good. What the threshold is for getting there, who knows? But in this Jataka story, it's pretty optimistic. We see it's not a huge thing that this person had to do to achieve her birth in heaven. She made one sincere offering of flowers to the Buddha, and that was enough. So it's not terribly difficult if we keep the 5 precepts and we do meritorious deeds. In theory, to go to heaven, it's not that hard from the Buddhist perspective. And we could still make mistakes, but we could, heaven is not that far away. It's not really out of reach. All right, Ovindu, why don't you read the next paragraph about the most delightful place in the Tāvatiṃsa?
Sure. As the most delightful place in the Tāvatiṃsa realm itself, the highest of the realms connected to the earth, Nandanavana is considered the epitome of sensual pleasure. When an earthly garden is given the highest praise, it is compared to Nandanavana. In the Samyutta Nikaya, we hear the newly arisen Deva, overwhelmed by the delightful experience of all 5 senses, exclaiming, "He does not know bliss who has not seen Nandanavana." For this, he is rebuked by a wiser Deva, who reminds him that all compounded things are subject to destruction and that the highest bliss is the stilling of the formations.
Great, yeah. So we see here that although Nandanavana is praised as being a beautiful and good thing, and it is a great bliss to spend time there and experience it, the highest bliss is the stilling of formations. Of course, this here, it means nibbana. What do formations mean? Anybody know what that means? Does anybody know the Pali word? This is a translation of a Pali word. It's anybody know the Pali word for this? So the word here that they're translating when they say formations is sankhara. Sankhara means like things that are stuck together or done together or made into a piece, like sewn together or that kind of thing. It's one of the 5 aggregates. What are the other aggregates? Just shout them out. They don't have to be in the right order. Just shout an aggregate. What are the other aggregates? There are 5. We got 1, sankharas, formations. What are the other ones?
I may or may not have searched this up, but rupa.
Rupa, yeah, okay. Form, your body is one of the aggregates. What are some of the other? We have sankharas, these formations. We have your form, that's your body. What else do we have? What makes up you? That's what they are. They're the things that make a being. So
is it the 5 piles or like the 5 heaps or piles?
Yep. Aggregates, piles, heaps. The Pali is kanda, which means a pile of things, like a pile of straw, for example. So kanda.
Vedana?
Yeah, Vedana is feelings. That's your reaction to things. That's what it means. Like, I like this, I don't like this, don't care about this. That's another aggregate. So you have your form, you have your reaction to things perceived through form. You have sankharas, your formations, and there are 2 more. One is very obvious, and the other is a little less obvious.
Vijnana?
Vijnana, yeah. Vijnana. So vijnana is consciousness. Consciousness is really obvious that it should be in there, because if you're not conscious, you're not a being. You can't call something a being if it's missing consciousness. I put that at the top of the stack. I view them as being sequential, like you need previous one to construct the one above it. So the other one is sanya. So sanya is translated as perception sometimes. Some people say it's memory, but it's the ability essentially to categorize things and go like, that's an apple, that's a person, that's a book, then like to recognize things and not necessarily label them with mental words, but to recognize something as a discrete object and to like have a concept about it and to put it in a category. That's sanya. So that's necessary to make sankharas. It's necessary to make formations. So the sankharas are kind of like impulses. They're like that's a fruit. I'm hungry. I'll eat it. Like that's a thought. I'll have this fruit now and I'll eat it. That's a sankhara, right? That's my enemy. I'll hit him. That's a sankhara. Like you recognize that's an enemy. You have a vedana about it, and then you decide to do something as with an impulse. That is a sankhara. That's what's happening. So those things are when a sankhara arises, that is kamma. That's action. That's what's going on. Technically, like there can be thoughts and impulses and things beyond enlightenment. You can have like an arhat can think, I'll go to this village, I'll like talk to this person, but they are no longer in the sankhara. So like they have a form, like obviously an arhat has a body. The Buddha walked around for 40 years with the body, and he could think and he could talk and interact with people. He wasn't just a stone. But like after those sankharas are cut off, all those volitional formations, that impulsive doing things is gone. And essentially all the sankharas that arise are just wholesome and good. Okay, so the Nandanavana is so nice that, where were we? Were we at Ovindu? Naomi, did you read the last one?
I just finished reading it.
You did one. Ovini. Okay.
Starting from so delightful.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. So delightful is Nandanavana that it is here where Devas choose to go at the end of their lifespans. Not only does fear of death dissolve like a snowball under the spell of Nandanavana's divine beauty, but it is believed among them that a Deva who dies here will take a fortunate rebirth. Not only Tāvatiṃsa, but every Sagga has its own Nandanavana, and it is, for instance, from the Nandanavana is Tusta, that the Bodhisattva passed away before taking his final human birth as Siddhartha Gautama, who became the Buddha.
Okay, great. Yeah, so there is a similar kind of pleasure park in other realms in other heavenly realms, but this one is the nicest because it is the highest that is still part of that sensual realm that you can experience. So there's all the other ones below it are kind of like pale shadows, even Tusita, which is I think not as nice exactly. But Tusita is still very important in the mythology because it's believed that Tusita heaven, not Tāvatiṃsa, is where bodhisattvas end up before they are born as the being who become the Buddha, before their final life. So for example, it is generally believed that Metteyya, who is the bodhisattva who's ready to become the next Buddha, he's the next in the queue. It's believed that he is there in Tāvatiṃsa as a Deva, waiting for for his lifespan to run out, and then he will appear on the earth as among human beings and achieve awakening and become the next Buddha. He's very important in a lot of mythology. A lot of people are very excited for him to show up. So far he hasn't, but we wouldn't expect him to, because according to the mythology, he can't appear while Buddhism exists, because then he wouldn't be a Buddha, right? So he's hanging out in Tusita heaven, not in Tāvatiṃsa. Well, let's see here. How much time do we have? Yeah, okay. Let's do Seth. Seth, why don't you read the next paragraph, but the 3 other gardens.
Okay. 3 other gardens of Tāvatiṃsa are named in the text. Chitta was made manifest by the coming of Chitta, one of Maga's 4 wives. She had planted a lovely garden with many varieties and trees and flowering vines to adorn the great hall. She was born as the known for his great abundance of flowering vines. It is so beautiful that the radius of the Devas who visit it is dimmed by comparison. Here grows the Asavati creeper, which flowers only once in 1,000 years. An intoxicating drink is made from the fruit, which causes the drinker to lie in a pleasant stupor upon his divan for 4 months. The faru... How do you say that word?
Paru, it's Paru Sakavana.
Oh.
Paru Sakavana.
Parusakavana is named for the Parusaka berry which grows there. This is identified as the
Growia asiatica, which is just a plant.
asiatica, and is
Oh,
okay.
getting some. You're cutting in and out again.
My internet connection is kind of.
Yeah. Okay. Why don't we come back? To this one in a second?
Is it better now? I don't know.
A little bit. Okay. Why don't you finish it now? Okay, or not.
Okay. And is used to make a more. Okay.
Okay.
Still...
All right. That's fine. That's good. We'll give it a rest while we figure out what's up with your internet there. Yeah. So anyway, there's some other groves, 3 other ones, and they're not as widely discussed, but we know the etymology of some of them, except the last one, which we don't really even know what that means. Misakavana, no one really knows what its etymological origin is or what's going on there. Let's go to. Yeah, let's get that next paragraph as well. Oh, what's going on? Hang on a second. I seem to be having some issues too. I can still see you guys, but can't seem to switch to the tab. Oh well. Oh, there we go. All right. So let's read about the Sudhamma Hall. Dilaka, why don't you tell us about the Sudhamma Hall?
A very important feature of the Tāvatiṃsa is the Sudhamma Hall. The full name is Sudhamma Deva Sabham, where the 33 meet in assembly. Its dimensions are variously given as 500 or 900 yojana. Perhaps one number refers to its height and the other to its extent, although it's not made clear. The Sudhamma Hall is to be the most delightful structure in the world, and it is a common saying, even nowadays, to say of any beautiful building that it is like the Sudhamma Hall. There, under a yojana wide white parasol, sits Sakka, Lord of the Devas, upon a golden couch, ruling over Devas and humans.
Okay, great. Yeah, so he's sort of the king of the world, and his big nice couch. A yojana wide would probably be maybe a little over twice as wide as he is tall, right? Because they're like about 8 kilometers tall or something, right? So it's this massive parasol. We would just like be sitting on his toes or something if we went to visit him. Reminds me of that scene in the Disney movie Hercules where he goes to the statue of Zeus on Olympus and then it picks him up and talks to him. A little bit like that. Yeah, this is, I guess, equivalent to like, there's a similar hall in Valhalla, which means like the hall of the gods or whatever in like Norse mythology. And they get together in this hall. Naomi, when do they get together?
There are 4 occasions for the meetings of Devas, the beginning and the end and end of the Vasa, for the teaching of Dhamma, or for the Blossom Festival. At the beginning of Vasa, the full moon of the month of Asada, the Devas investigate where on earth various communities of bhikkhus will be staying for the rains and organize their protection.
Okay, very good. So yeah, these are obviously significant events in the Buddhist calendar. So this is probably a little bit biased. If we pretend these devas exist, sort of assume that they're all Buddhist, but we've seen that not all of the other beings in the cosmos believe in Buddhism. Like, they have varied opinions about things. They're all individuals, and so it's sort of assumed that these, in the text here, that these devas organize their lives around the Buddhist calendar and around Buddhist events and things. So obviously we're getting it from a very biased source. And these are mythological figures essentially created in part by Buddhist discourse, so we shouldn't be too surprised. And we probably also shouldn't take it too literally. But that, I think, is very interesting, that these devas take great interest in Buddhism, and they care for the bhikkhus and things like that. I don't know what they do when there are no bhikkhus in the world. They must have some other times to get together and things to do if there is no Buddhism in the world, because of course their lifespan is so long that Buddhism will be like a flash in the pan. I mean, Buddhism is not going to last that long as a historical event, maybe if we're lucky 10,000 years or something, so that's a blink in the eye to these devas. So I don't know what they do with the rest of their time.
I also have a question.
Yeah.
So because one day for them is 100 years for us, and usually every year there's a rainy retreat thing, wouldn't that mean that they have like a meeting every 1 second of their day or something?
Yeah, that's a really good point. So they have like an assembly. So if a day is 100 years, then there would be 100 of these meetings every day. Yeah. So obviously that's a lot of meetings. I get tired if I have like 1 or 2 meetings for work every day. So that's a lot. So yeah, obviously that doesn't make a lot of sense. It's sort of, I think, because again, like, people probably weren't thinking about these things too much when they created these myths. And also probably the mythology comes from diverse sources, I expect. So like various factoids and trivia things about these deities are probably coming from all kinds of directions and pooling together and getting glued in. So I imagine that you had some myth about these devas meeting for the vasa and protecting the bhikkhus, and that came from like one source. And maybe another source is the one that gives us all these figures about like how long they live and the scale of time for them and so on. So these things are probably all woven together to create contradictory stories. Although it does have some comical consequences. It's like, okay, all right, good job, meeting over, coffee break, then we come back and do the meeting again. And that's all they spend their time doing. All right, do we want to skip that paragraph? Okay, actually, let's read the last paragraph, and then we'll take a quick break. We just did Naomi, right? So is that right? No, Vindu now? Why don't you read the last paragraph of the chapter on page 450?
It is a general rule?
Yep.
It is a general rule that a being who wishes to manifest in a lower realm must assume a coarser form suitable to that realm to be visible to its inhabitants. This is implied in many instances of devas appearing in the human sphere. For instance, when the devas of Tāvatiṃsa come to visit the Buddha on one occasion, the villagers nearby perceive only a terrifying brilliant light and imagine that the mountain top is aflame. Likewise, in Sakka's many visitations to the humans, he always takes on an earthly form, similar usually of a Brahmin. This may be in part for purposes of disguise, as he seems to prefer to do his work in incognito. but at least a couple of instances may be cited which indicate that such a form is necessary in order to not be seen at all. In Jataka 347, Ayaka attempts to smite the Bodhisattva, but is stopped by Sakka. The Yaka, not Sakka, is seen by the Bodhisattva. In Jataka 194, Sakka is said specifically to assume a visible form in order to be seen. The exception to this rule is that the Buddha and the others who have developed the divine eye faculty are able to perceive beings invisible to others.
Right, yeah, and I think we've discussed this many times that generally speaking, they're invisible unless they wish to make themselves seen. And in order to do this, they have to assume a form that is comprehensible to us. And you can tell the signs of the Dibbachaku that is developing when you see these orbs of light as the forms of the Devas as kind of blobs of radiance at first before they assume a kind of more coherent form. So but to normal beings, they don't even appear as the light, they appear as nothing at all. It's just they're just completely invisible. Okay, cool. So it's 3:04. Come back at 3:15. We'll do a short meditation and then we'll have a discussion and whatever you guys want to talk about. We'll do question time and so on. So go get a snack, take a break, stretch your legs, and be back here in 10 minutes. Okay, everybody. Chime in when you get back.
Then Mike, I'm here.
Okay. Okay, looks like everyone's back except Ovini. Okay. Suppose we could start. There we go. There's Seth. Okay. We have, right. I think we still have an empty breakout room here. It's kind of weird. Okay, why don't we start a meditation for about 10 minutes? Ovini can just jump in when she gets back. Find whatever posture you like to sit in and pick your favorite theme of meditation for until just about, until we'll try to go till 3:30. Okay, dedicate the merit of your practice to whatever objective you'd like to achieve. And yeah, I don't have a quiz for you today. I didn't have time to make one up. It's been a little bit busy lately, but we can chat about anything that's on your mind. We can do Q&A, or you guys can share your thoughts. I know that I answer questions fairly regularly, but I am also interested in hearing what you guys think. If you've had any interesting insights, or if you've heard anything or thought anything kind of cool that's relevant recently, I'm all ears.
I think it was like last week or something, but my dad, me and him, we were watching like this documentary thingy, and he was telling me that Jesus went to go look for the Buddha, something like that. Like, but it was like 500 years after the Buddha had the Parinibbana. Pretty sure that's it. Yeah.
I've heard similar theories before. So this is a kind of, it sounds like a kind of variation on the Jesus went to India hypothesis. I'm not an expert in Christianity or Christian history, but I think I know a fair amount. And this is one of the theories. It's sort of I think it's generally considered a fringe theory. Most people don't believe it's true, but essentially, the Bible doesn't account, the existing Bible that the most Christians use does not account for Jesus's youth. It tells the story of his birth and then sort of skips over the intervening events and development of his life. And then suddenly he's an adult and he's preaching and teaching and doing all these things. So some people have hypothesized that because a lot of the things that Jesus talks about sound sort of similar to Indian philosophies like Buddhism or Hinduism, that he went to India in the intervening period and he learned things there. Like he learned Indian philosophy and then came back to the West to teach it. And there is no archaeological or even literary evidence to suggest this. I'm not saying it's false, but there's no evidence. So there's a gap in the narrative that people have filled in with something with their imagination. But I don't think there's necessarily anything uniquely Indian about the contents of the Bible. The things that Jesus seems to teach are either mostly kind of common sense morality, like don't be a jerk and all those things. Like they're good moral lessons. But I don't think there's anything uniquely Indian about those moral lessons. I think those are things that people instinctively understand as humans. So I don't see any reason why that would need to be derived from Indian philosophy. And the other aspects of the kind of Christian teaching are just rather esoteric and mysterious. Because Christianity, a lot of people forget, is a kind of esoteric religion. Is to say it has secret aspects to it or kind of mystical aspects that can't be understood intellectually. Like in Zen, they have their koans and stuff that don't make any sense. And so it's like break your mind. Jesus has a lot of teachings like that as well that don't make any sense if you read them, and you kind of have to grapple with them and understand them from your heart rather than from your mind. And I think those don't really, it's because they're so esoteric and hard to understand. People interpret them 1,000 different ways, so they can mean almost anything you want them to. So it's very hard to establish that claim. Not saying it's definitely false, but I don't think there's enough evidence for or against that hypothesis. Though I've heard some people describe that. I think it's an interesting theory.
Mhm.
Also heard, I think I've heard of at least one kind of Tibetan teacher describe Jesus as being a bodhisattva as well, which I think is or a Buddha or a bodhisattva, which I think is an interesting hypothesis. I don't think any of these things are necessarily mutually exclusive. Like he could be, people can appear in the world and teach wisdom and not necessarily be Buddhists and still be living by Buddhist values and virtues. Because of course the Buddha himself wasn't a Buddhist until he founded Buddhism. So like Buddhism as an institution, and the Buddhism and the values and truths that Buddhism point at are different. And that's an important thing to remember. So you don't necessarily have to be Buddhist to be a good Buddhist. You just have to be a good person. Although there are some things obviously about Christianity that don't square with Buddhism. Jesus clearly taught a kind of monotheistic worldview where salvation is given to you by God who creates the world and controls it, which is at odds with Buddhist philosophy. So in this sense, I think that's pretty clear from the teachings of Jesus that he believed this and encouraged others to believe this. So in that sense, I don't think that's derived from Buddhist philosophy, at least. Not that it's necessarily bad or evil to do so. I think that I don't know if have any of you been to church before? Have you been to a church event? Have you been to a mass at a Catholic church or anything like that?
Yeah, we used to go to Catholic school, so we went to church.
Oh, okay. That must have been an interesting experience. Did you find it was difficult going to a Catholic school as a Buddhist?
No, I kind of like learning about like a different religion to kind of like see and kind of a bit compare it with Buddhism to see like what it's like. And yeah.
Yeah, it's good to have varied perspectives. I grew up in Vancouver where this was all, easily possible back before COVID. I definitely went in temples and things, and I participated in religious events from all kinds of different things, and I don't think it's harmful. And I have a lot of good friends who practice different religions, and I go to their events, and sometimes they come to mine. I think I have one or two other friends who went to Catholic school who are not Catholic, and I think it's an interesting experience. It sounds like it anyway. I didn't go. Oh, before I forget, yes, I'm glad I remembered. There is one thing that I wanted to mention. So the next session, that is April 25th, is when we had scheduled for everybody to hand in their kind of creative projects. I just wanted to put everything on the table so you guys know what we're expecting. Because it's a creative project and we want you to apply yourself in different ways, it's very hard to come up with standard criteria. And we don't want you to feel too pressured about this. So what we're going to do is we're going to assign this will be like 20 or 30% of the final mark for the course. The rest will be the exam. And this will be just basically divided into half the marks will be actually completing it, handing it in and doing the work. And the other half of the marks will be based on if it looks like you put in some effort, because it's hard to have some standard criterion or rubric if you're going to be doing different things. If someone has a song, someone has a story, someone does a drawing, it can't lay down any standard criterion. So whatever you guys submit and present, just pick what you think you would enjoy doing and put some heart into it. And if we can tell that you handed it in, you put some heart into it, then you'll get full marks. That's it. We just want you to kind of think about it and be creative, have some fun. That's all we expect.
I have a question. So is it like due the next time we come back, or is the next time we come back like the final date to submit it? We can submit it anytime between.
You could submit it anytime you want. If you have it done, you could submit it now. But yeah, we expect you at the latest to hand it in next time. That is Sunday the 25th.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, Naomi. I see you talking, but I didn't hear you.
I just said, how are we submitting it? Like where are we submitting?
Oh, I think the temple email is the best thing to do. Could also send it to me, or you could just copy both. So You all have the temple email, right? Yep.
I'm not sure. I don't.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. There is, so you can let's see, let's just make sure everybody has both. So you can send them to, where to go? Okay. So here's my email. So you can send it to me, and the contact for the temple. Just want to make sure I don't type it wrong. So let me go check in my email. Yeah, Ottawa Buddhist Monastery. That's the one. There you go. So if you send it to both of those emails, we will make, you'll definitely get somebody. I can access both, so I should be able to see duplicate copies of everything you do. And yeah, that's basically it. So any questions or concerns or thoughts about that? Are you all okay with that? Super clear.
I also,
Just like,
sorry.
that's okay, you can go. It's fine.
No, go ahead.
Okay, just like sort of, what do you want us like do it on? Like what? It's just like anything that we did throughout the course.
Yeah, so whatever we've touched on so far throughout the course, the various realms and states of existence, I'd like you to give some kind of interpretation of that state or realm somehow. So perhaps you could draw a picture of what it might look like, or you could write a story about someone who experiences being born there, or somebody who visits there, or you could write a song or a poem about the sights and sounds of experiences in that realm, or whatever else you can you would think of. It can be like, it doesn't have to be literal, right? Like we discussed so far, don't probably take these things too literally. You can go lean all the way in and be like, yeah, here's all the apsaras and the gandhabas, and there's like flowers and all that stuff. Or you can be allegorical about it, or you can reimagine and reinterpret it in a different way. You could say, maybe it exists, but it's not literal, and here's how it would, I imagine it to be. Or you could discuss ordinary human experience as a kind of parallel or an analogy of that state of being. You could do any of those things. It's all on the table.
Could I draw a picture of what I think the yucca will look like?
That sounds great. That sounds like it would be a really cool project. Yeah, draw a picture of a yucca, and that there's a lot of room for creativity there, because as we described, they don't exactly have a uniform appearance. So you could draw a little inspiration from this story, that story. We heard about Suchiloma and his needle skin, and we heard about other yuccas, and so we could kind of pick from here and there and kind of just glue it all together. So that's a great example of something you could do.
Before I had the same question as that, yeah, and then after, I have another question. So I finished my project, and it's about why lying is the easiest way to get you to hell. And I would draw some pictures of like what they would do, like they would make you drink boiling water. Would you like something more complex than that, or like, I don't know what you?
I think that's okay. You said it's like a story or some kind of.
Well, it's like why lying is the easiest way to get you to hell.
Okay, so it's like an essay kind of thing, or
yeah,
I think that's okay, and it's got like little stories or illustrations and things in there to make your point.
Yeah,
I think that's okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
Mike,
Mhm.
I had a similar related question. The project that I had in mind isn't like completely, like, we didn't learn it in this course, but it's 100% related to like Buddhism.
Okay, so it's like something you learned about this topic through another medium.
It's the Dhamma chakra.
Yeah, that sounds fine.
Yeah, okay, perfect.
Yeah, that's all good.
Thank you.
Yeah, as long as it's kind of like we're talking about the different realms of existence and samsara, which is the kind of the point, and trying to think about how we could understand them and how would they be experienced and what do they like and what do they mean for us, and that's what we want you to think about. So as long as it's going in that direction, you can draw from stuff outside the course. It's perfectly acceptable.
Mike, I also have a quick question. For my project, I chose to do like comparing Buddhist heavens with other heavens from other religions. Was that like a good topic?
Yeah, I think that's pretty cool. If you go like, here's the realm of the 33, and here's what there's like a parallel to like Norse mythology, and here are the similarities. Like this garden appears in a different, it's like named similarly in like Zoroastrian mythology or something. Yeah, sure. I think that's cool. That's a really interesting research project.
Thanks.
Yeah, so it sounds like you all have pretty good ideas of what you want to do. So I like that. It seems like you're engaged with the idea. Yeah. Anything else about the project, or about the heavens, or the lower realms, or meditation, or just about your daily life?
Mike. Sorry to bring back. It's about the Dhammacakra. I was a little confused on what it actually was, and if it's related to like the project we're doing, like if it's related to like the realms in some way.
So you mean the symbol of the actual wheel?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So that wheel is, I guess, it's kind of like the anti. So we picture samsara also as like a wheel or a circle sometimes, right? But the Dhammacakra is almost like the anti-samsara wheel. It's like the opposite of it. But that symbol of the wheel is it has the 8 spokes, and each spoke is one step on the eightfold path. And I think it's generally depicted as a circle because as you work through the steps, each one kind of supports the next one, and then the last one supports the first one again. And it's like a virtuous cycle as opposed to a vicious cycle like samsara. It's not usually tied to the realms themselves. Like it's just the steps of the path that get you out of samsara. When you said the Dhammacakra, I thought you meant the Dhammacakra Pavatana Sutta, which actually goes through the list of all the heavens and talks about the Devas there and how they rejoice because the Buddha has established the Dhamma and the Sangha by giving his sermon, and all the Devas kind of rejoice. And so you kind of get this tour, very quick tour in the Sutta of the higher realms and all the different Devas celebrating. I thought that's what you meant.
Yeah, I meant the Dhammacakra wheel.
Oh, yeah, as a symbol. Okay, yeah. That doesn't really have too much of a connection to the realms of samsara, I don't think, as a parallel.
Okay, so was it still eligible, or should I pick something else?
If you can get really creative, I'd say go for it, but I think it would be hard to tie it in there. But if you want to talk about the Dhammacakra, you could try what I just suggested. You could go with the Dhammacakra Pavatana Sutta, which is the discourse on the turning of the Dhamma wheel. And then it does list a bunch of heavens in there, all the sense heavens. I think it goes up to the top of that. So you could go through those heavens as a tour or something. And you could that might be a way you could do it. But yeah, as a symbol, I think it's not a very good. It would be hard. It would be difficult. I'm not going to tell you no. If you can get creative, go for it. But I can't think of a way right now.
Thank you, Mike.
You're welcome. Okay. Yeah. Anything else about the projects or the realms, the 33? Okay. In that case, I think I will probably hand things off to Bhante Chandima, and we can close up the session. Bhante, we were just talking about the project. To wrap up, we were talking about the deadline being 2 weeks from now, and how we're going to kind of weight it and score it. And I think most of the students have a pretty good idea of what they want to do, and I heard some pretty creative ideas. So I like that. I think everybody's pretty engaged.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Yeah, what's going on?
So we we discussed we were just finishing up by discussing the project for next time, and how I told them how we're going to weight it and score it. And a lot of the students shared their ideas, what they'd like to do. I think that's they seem pretty engaged and that they have a good idea what they're interested in doing.
So do they know that how they will be given the marks?
Yeah, that we're going to weight it based on, completion is a part, and then the other part is going to be, there. If we can tell that they put some heart and effort into it, then they'll get full marks.
Okay, so Mike, this is going to be kind of a creative thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I don't know whether they like to, whether they like us to post the final thing after marks on our website, if it is a good thing.
Yeah, I think that's an okay idea. I think probably would go on an individual case by case basis, right? If you as an individual think I'm okay with putting this out there, then you can let us know when you submit it. You could say I'm okay with this being posted on the website or something like that.
Not mandatory, but you can tell us.
Just if you want to.
Rather than we just look at it and then give you the marks, right? It's good too. So, yeah.
I think it would be nice if a couple of you wanted to share it with the community. That's just fine, but no pressure. If you don't feel confident, that's just fine. You don't have to.
Do they have an idea of what they exactly gonna do? I mean,
I think a lot of people. Yeah, I think we had one person say they want to do a kind of drawing or a portrait of a kind of creature from another realm. We had somebody suggest an essay, and I think there was somebody mentioned a story or something like that. So we have some different kind of ideas floating around.
I heard somebody was talking about Dhammachakra.
Yeah, it was Dilaka.
Oh, Dilaka. Are you gonna draw a Dhammachakra or?
Yeah, that was the idea, but I think I'm going to transition back to the sutra, like Mike was saying.
Mike, there is a controversy about Dhammachakra spokes. Now the Dhammachakra we see online, the spokes come out. Can be set in motion sometimes. There is a huge controversy about it. It should be a wheel, right?
Spokes should
the
poke
spokes
out.
Cannot come out.
Yeah. Oh, really? I've never heard of this.
That's
debate.
how they. I don't know why they do it, but normally it has to set in motion.
Right. Yeah. So if you have the handle sticking out beyond the rim, it wouldn't roll as a wheel, right?
Yeah, it can be, right? So I don't know what's Dilaka's plan about Dhammachakra.
Well,
I was planning on drawing something and carving it from wood, but I think I'm gonna go towards what Mike was saying with the sutra, though, since it's not very connected to what we learned that much.
There is a good. You're reminding me of this. It's a classic painting from. This particular interpretation of it is from it's like Tibetan. It's a Tibetan, usually. It's a Tibetan.
Oh, the Bhava Chakra.
Yeah. So this is kind of the opposite of what you were talking about, I suppose. But it's
well, I mean, see, the spokes have not come out in here, right?
Yeah.
It's
in this wheel, it's segmented into the different realms of existence, and then the outside shows a person's kind of journey through various different lives. This is supposed to be the same being going around and around again, and then we have all the different states. We see the lower realms, we see the petas, and we see animals here, and we see heavenly realms and things. And it's of course supposed to be Mara on the outside, right, holding the whole wheel.
Mike, do you have any idea about the monk on the top? There's a monk
in this particular.
In the top?
I don't know if it's always there because some of them don't have it. It's just some of them do. I'm looking at various kind of.
Because I heard, see the Dhammachakra there, the spokes have come out.
Oh yeah, they're different.
That one, and this monk, I guess, should be Upagupta, I guess, because he has a battle between Mara.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, in Mahayana Buddhism, there's a saying that Upagupta, one of the monks, the Buddha asked him to, defeat Mara. I don't know.
Yeah, it could absolutely be. I think it also signifies, yeah, I see the one that I sent has only one figure. Some of them have more than one figure outside, but they're always these kind of spiritual heroes and monastics. I think the important thing from that is that they are depicted as being outside the wheel. They're not on it. They've gone beyond it, right?
So what are Ovini's and Ovindu's plan? Are they gonna draw something or?
For mine, I'm going to compare Buddhist heavens with heavens from other religions, like our heaven in Christianity and in ancient Egyptian mythology, etc.
Ovini?
I'm doing about why lying is the easiest. Why lying is the easiest to get you into hell, and I'm gonna draw like them giving like punishments in hell.
Okay, and Seth?
I'm gonna try to draw my interpretation of one of the hells, probably. Something like that.
And what about Naomi?
I was gonna draw what I think a yucca looks like from a certain story, maybe.
Mm-hmm. And we know about the letter. Yeah. Okay, so that's a good. So they're gonna be submitting by 25th.
Yeah, by the 25th. I told them they could send it to both the temple email and to me. That way we'll
Yes,
definitely
please.
get it.
Yeah, we have a copy. Okay. Yeah, we'll then chant the Chatamana Vigata. So please write and chant. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mike.
You all again on the 25th.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Hamid.
Hamid.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Thank you.